Have you ever wondered if before you even took your first breath, your soul was already making choices, crafting plans, visiting places you wouldn't remember? The deeper truth of that process, the truth about what really happens before you're born, has been hidden in plain sight, suppressed, edited, even banned. Because if humanity ever remembered what truly happens before birth, everything would change. How you see yourself, how you see life, how you see death. In the early 1970s, a series of transcripts and recordings began circulating quietly through select publishing circles. They weren't controversial because they were irrational. They were controversial because they were true, too coherent, too bold. They didn't come from a priest or a scientist, but from a woman named Jane Roberts, who claimed to be channeling a non-physical intelligence known as Seth. These messages were not scattered ramblings. They were structured teachings, meticulous, layered, and precise. Seth spoke with the calm authority of a metaphysical professor, explaining reality in ways science couldn't measure and religion couldn't contain. And that's exactly why much of it never reached the public eye. Publishers rejected the most provocative sections, especially the ones describing what occurs before birth. They called it too advanced, too dangerous, too disruptive. Perhaps they were right. Because if you realized you chose this life, this body, these parents, even your deepest struggles, you would stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You would remember yourself as a creator with a hidden past. And that realization changes everything. Seth wasn't a drifting ghost. He was a teacher beyond time, one who no longer needed a body, yet returned to guide humanity through the architecture of existence itself. His words, spoken through Jane while she was in deep trance, were captured line by her husband, unedited, unpolished, unfiltered truth. And what he revealed about life, death, and the spaces between them threatened to rewrite everything we've been taught to believe. There's a reason this material was buried. Imagine a world built on fear and control, suddenly learning that the soul cannot be owned, that death is not an ending, and that birth is not a beginning, but a chosen entry point. A voluntary descent into experience. How do you keep people obedient when they remember they are eternal? That's why they silenced it, not because it was false, but because it was liberating. And now, for the first time in decades, we're reopening that forbidden doorway to uncover what was meant to stay hidden. The soul's journey before life began, the truth of your own choosing, and the moment your eternal consciousness decided to become you. You weren't created at birth, you arrived. You, as a being of consciousness, didn't suddenly flicker into existence when your lungs drew air for the first time. That moment, though dramatic and beautiful, wasn't your genesis, it was your re-entry. The truth is, you existed long before that breath. You were awake, aware, deliberate. You were watching, preparing, choosing. Your consciousness isn't a byproduct of biology. It wasn't born when neurons began to fire or when your heart first beat. Consciousness precedes form, it gives rise to it. What Seth described, and what ancient spiritual traditions whispered in secret, is that before you ever touched the physical world, you existed in a realm between realms. A dimension neither earth nor heaven, but a luminous space of reflection and preparation. And in that place, you were not asleep. You were fully alive. In that in-between state, you carried more than memory. You carried momentum. Echoes of past lives, fragments of unfulfilled lessons, the residue of emotions still seeking resolution. You surveyed the tapestry of possibility before you, lives waiting like open doors, paths intersecting like constellations of energy. From that higher vantage point, you didn't stumble into this incarnation, you selected it. You chose it with precision, not as punishment, but as progression, drawn by the magnetic pull of growth, of completion, of love unfinished. In that moment, your awareness was vast. You saw connections that now seem invisible. You understood things your current mind cannot yet hold. Time didn't apply there, only resonance. You could feel the souls you would meet, the joys and challenges that would sculpt you, the karmic threads you were ready to untangle, and through it all, one intention anchored your choice: to evolve, to remember, to awaken. From this greater perspective, birth was never an entrance into life. It was an entrance into limitation, into the narrow theater of time, sensation, and forgetting. You descended willingly, like a beam of light narrowing into a single point, knowing that within the density and duality of Earth, you would rediscover your own radiance by contrast. The veil wasn't imposed upon you, you stepped into it. You forgot so that you could remember again from experience rather than theory. And now, when you look into the mirror and wonder who you are, understand this. You are not the name you were given or the history you inherited. You are older than history itself. Vaster than the mind can comprehend. Wiser than you have ever been told. You didn't begin here, you merely reappeared. Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why you were born into this family, in this body, during this time? It might seem random, like fate rolled the dice and dropped you where you landed, but nothing about your arrival was accidental. Long before your birth, you were already making choices, intentional choices, soul-deep decisions shaped by ancient memory and luminous purpose. You chose your parents, not because they were perfect, but because they were precise. They carried the exact patterns, the emotional frequencies, the conditions your soul needed to evolve. The lessons, the wounds, the gifts, they were all encoded within them, waiting for you to unlock. You didn't stumble into this life by chance. You were drawn here by resonance, by energy, by unfinished stories whispering through lifetimes. Every soul carries with it echoes of the past, relationships left open, lessons unlearned, emotions unresolved. When the time comes to incarnate again, you don't spin a cosmic wheel. You return to the places where your heart still echoes. You're pulled toward the people, the circumstances, the energies that mirror your next step in evolution. From the in-between realm, you saw it all. The areas that still needed healing. The places where love was withheld. The parts of yourself still waiting to be reclaimed. And so, you chose the family, the environment, the cultural imprint that would awaken those dormant lessons. Sometimes, the souls who help you grow the most are the ones who challenge you the hardest. A distant parent, a sibling who never understood you, a relationship that broke you open. These are not random antagonists, they are collaborators in your awakening. Soul contracts, signed in silence, long before time began. Agreements where two souls meet and say, I will help you remember. Sometimes that help comes through tenderness, sometimes through pain, but both serve the same purpose, to awaken what lies sleeping within you. Even your culture, your ancestry, the land you were born on, they're all part of the architecture you helped design. You didn't just choose people, you chose frequency. You chose the energetic landscape most suited to your next evolution. Maybe you needed to experience life under pressure. Maybe you came to heal generational trauma. Maybe you came to rewrite a lineage bound by silence. These aren't random placements, they're invitations. The soul doesn't seek comfort, it seeks growth. It doesn't crave safety, it craves remembrance. And so you came, carrying invisible agreements, emotional residue older than this lifetime, and the courage to face your own reflection in others. Every encounter, every difficulty, every moment of connection has meaning deeper than you imagine. They are mirrors, activations, echoes of promises once made. You are not here by mistake, you are here by design. You may have believed that life begins at conception, that the soul drops in like a spark igniting matter. But the truth is far more intricate, far more fluid. The soul's entry into the body isn't a single event. It's a gradual descent, a sacred merging of spirit with form. Consciousness doesn't crash into existence, it unfolds into it. Each soul enters differently, guided by its own rhythm, readiness, and intent. Some souls rush forward the moment the seed of life takes hold. Eager, passionate, bound by deep karmic ties, they enter at conception, infusing the embryo with immediate presence. These are the old souls who seem awake from the beginning, strong-willed, clear-eyed, anchored early. But not every soul follows this path. Others wait. They hover in gentle observation, circling the developing form, influencing its growth from the periphery. They don't fully enter until the body becomes energetically stable enough to contain their essence. For some, that happens in the middle of pregnancy, when the heartbeat becomes steady and the spirit can align with its rhythm. And then there are those who wait until the final moment, the ones who enter at birth. They arrive like lightning through clouds, riding the shock of that first breath. The transition is jarring, the entry dramatic. These souls often feel displaced in early life, as though they never fully landed. They may grow up with a quiet sense of distance, dreamers, wanderers, observers. It's not that they don't belong, it's that their awareness is still bridging worlds. They remember too much. The truth is, there's no universal law dictating when consciousness arrives. Each incarnation is unique, a choreography of energy between the soul, the body, and the greater design it serves. In the spaces between, before anchoring into flesh, the soul dwells in a dreamlike realm, half here, half elsewhere. It studies, it attunes. It listens to the vibration of its chosen mother, synchronizing with her heartbeat, her emotions, her song. The fetus becomes the stage upon which the spirit begins to rehearse its role in matter. This phase is sacred. The soul, still fluid, begins weaving threads of identity through muscle, memory, and DNA. It's not simply entering a body, it's composing one. Each thought, each intention, each echo of emotion becomes part of the living architecture. It's a slow, deliberate embodiment, a descent through layers of light, until at last, the soul steps through the veil of density and calls the body home. Birth doesn't mark the start of that journey, it marks the culmination of it. The moment when spirit finally becomes visible, solid, and vulnerable. The moment consciousness says, I am here now. Even before you were born, you were aware, not just faintly drifting in darkness, but actively sensing, responding, and co-creating. The womb wasn't your beginning, it was your first classroom. A bridge between worlds where spirit met matter, where the infinite slowly learned to inhabit the finite. Inside that quiet, liquid cathedral, something extraordinary was happening. You weren't merely being built, you were participating in your own becoming. Your consciousness, though not yet fully anchored, was already weaving itself through the growing form, aligning your energetic blueprint with the cells and tissues of the life you had chosen. Before the mind could reason, or the eyes could open, you were communicating through vibration. Every beat of your mother's heart, every rhythm of her breath, every emotion she felt, joy, fear, tenderness, grief, sent ripples of energy into your forming world. The fetus doesn't merely absorb these frequencies, it dances with them. Lightness becomes expansion, fear becomes contraction. Her thoughts, her songs, her silences, all were language to you. You were learning safety, you were learning love, you were learning the first lessons of what it means to feel. This bond between mother and child goes far beyond the biological. It's telepathic, energetic, soul to soul. You existed inside her aura, breathing her energy before you ever breathed air. Before sound or language, there was resonance, and through that resonance, you began shaping your emotional foundation. These weren't random impressions, they were initiations. Through her joy, you learned connection. Through her sorrow, you learned compassion. Through her fear, you learned courage. You were already decoding the emotional architecture of human experience. Yet, even as your body formed and your senses awakened, a deeper part of you remained tethered to the space between lives. You moved between realms, sometimes immersed in the warmth of the womb, sometimes drifting back into the luminous silence from which you came. There, you communed with guides, revisited memories, reaffirmed the purpose that brought you here. You knew what awaited you, the weight, the beauty, the forgetting, and you accepted it with courage. So when you finally emerged into light, crying out into the noise of the world, you were not entering as something new, you were continuing as something ancient, a consciousness that had already traveled through silence and sound, through memory and choice, now embodied in form. The womb was never your beginning, it was your passage. Your first breath wasn't just a reflex, it was impact, a cosmic collision between spirit and matter. That inhale was more than air filling your lungs, it was eternity collapsing into time. It was your soul anchoring into density with the force of creation itself. Birth, from the human view, is a beginning, but from the soul's perspective, it is a landing, a descent so profound it fractures silence into sound. In that instant, the infinite became local, the unseen became flesh, the eternal became you. For months you were wrapped in warmth, floating in rhythm, cradled in darkness that felt like home. But the moment of birth is rupture, pressure, light, sound, cold. It's not gentle, it's shattering. The cocoon breaks, the veil tears, and through that violence of becoming, your consciousness rushes forward, attempting to stabilize inside the body it once only observed. That first cry isn't fear, it's calibration. It's your spirit adjusting to gravity. This is why some souls hesitate before entry, waiting until that last instant to merge completely. To them, birth is an explosion of energy, too bright, too sharp, too heavy. It takes time for them to settle into the density of flesh. These are the ones who often feel out of place in their early years, as though they've arrived somewhere they don't entirely belong. Their sensitivity isn't weakness, it's memory, a reminder of how vast they truly are. That moment of arrival imprints you forever. It's not only your body that remembers, it's your energy, your nervous system, your soul. The sound, the light, the separation, each leaves a signature, a map of your first descent into form. It becomes the silent origin of your human story, the template through which you later interpret love, fear, safety, and belonging. The shock of incarnation is profound. The soul, once boundless, must now compress itself into a vessel that ages, hungers, and forgets. It must learn to navigate through time and space, to experience limitation not as punishment, but as a pathway back to awareness. The forgetting isn't exile, it's initiation, because to rediscover the eternal while living inside the temporary, that is mastery. And though you may not consciously remember that first breath, your deeper self never forgot. Somewhere within you, the memory of light meeting matter still hums quietly, waiting for you to listen. It's the whisper that stirs during moments of awe, déjà vu, or silence, the faint echo of the instant your soul said, "I am here." During your early years, you weren't fully here yet. Your soul was still learning how to stay. Childhood, often painted as a time of wonder and innocence, is also a time of slow descent, a gradual settling of spirit into matter. You were present, yes, but not completely anchored. Your awareness drifted like tides between worlds, part of you in the physical, part of you still adrift in the luminous realms you had just left behind. This is why infants often gaze into empty space with such unbroken focus, or sleep for hours lost in uncharted dreams. They are not absent, they are remembering. Their eyes, so new yet so ancient, still carry the reflection of the place they came from. In sleep, their souls travel back to that realm between lives. They commune with guides. They review the mission they agreed to. What we call dreaming is, for the young, a continuation of their consciousness in its truest state, unbounded, unhardened, unafraid. But as the body grows, something begins to change. The senses sharpen, the world becomes louder, brighter, more demanding, language takes hold, attention is pulled outward. And slowly, the vastness of the soul begins to narrow into identity. This isn't a fall from grace, it's an act of focus. To function here, consciousness must localize itself, it must learn the rules of the physical stage. And so, the forgetting begins. You forget where you came from. You forget that you chose this life. You forget that you are more than this name, this story, this shape. Yet even as you forget, the truth doesn't vanish, it only hides. It lingers in dreams, in imagination, in the strange feeling that there's something more behind the curtain of the ordinary. Children feel it naturally. Invisible friends, flashes of memory, the deep sense that the world isn't quite as it seems. These are not delusions, they are echoes, the soul whispering, "Don't lose me." As you grew, you weren't forming consciousness, you were learning to contain it. The process of being human is not about acquiring awareness, it's about remembering how to carry it. The body becomes the vessel, the nervous system, the bridge, the mind, the interpreter. Each step, each lesson, each heartbreak, grounds you deeper into form, teaching your vast spirit how to live in gravity without forgetting the sky. And even now, no matter your age, that part of you, the one that remembers the silence before the first breath, still exists beneath the noise. It watches through your eyes. It dreams through your sleep. It waits for the moment you will look inward and recognize it again. You were never learning how to be conscious, you were learning how to stay awake within the dream. Long before you were born, you had already walked through the outline of this life. You had seen glimpses of moments not yet lived, felt the presence of people you hadn't met, recognized places your feet had never touched. You didn't arrive here blind, you came with memory, soft and luminous, woven into your awareness like threads of distant music. These weren't memories of the past, they were echoes of the future. The life you're living now was first experienced in essence, in energy, before it ever unfolded in time. In that between-world space, you didn't simply choose an incarnation, you explored it. You moved through the emotional current of what your human story would hold, the love, the grief, the triumphs, the turning points. You felt the vibration of each potential life, as if trying on garments of destiny, sensing how they resonated against your evolving soul. When you found the life that matched your highest lesson, you knew. You saw it not in full detail, but as a map of feeling, a panorama of purpose waiting to be lived. Some souls take this preparation even further. They visit the environments they will one day inhabit, hovering unseen around their future homes, their families, their yet unborn friends. They feel the energy of those places and people, imprinting their frequency before ever taking form. This is why certain moments in your life feel so hauntingly familiar: a scent, a street corner, a face that stirs something deep within you. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations, the subtle echoes of the preview you once witnessed before birth. You've felt it, walking into a place for the first time, and knowing you've been there before, meeting someone whose eyes feel like déjà vu. These moments are fragments of your soul's prelude slipping through the veil. What you call déjà vu is not the mind glitching, it's the soul remembering the path it once rehearsed. Time, in that realm, folds in all directions. What you live now, you once foresaw. What you feel as fate, you once chose. And then there is soul recognition, that instant, wordless knowing when you encounter someone, and every layer of logic dissolves. It's not attraction, it's remembrance. These are the beings you promised to meet again, the ones whose energy you traced before birth. When you see them, timelines collapse, and your soul whispers, "There you are." The familiarity, the gravity, the tears you can't explain, those are echoes of the plan, the preview, the covenant of reunion. These glimpses aren't fantasy, they're fragments of your eternal memory resurfacing. They are the fingerprints of the divine plan you participated in before you arrived. Every strange familiarity, every déjà vu, every unexplainable knowing, is your higher self murmuring through the fabric of time, "You've been here before. You chose this." The reason you've always felt different, the quiet sense that this world never fully fits, isn't your imagination. It's memory. It's the echo of a soul that never completely rooted itself here. Not every consciousness enters life with the same level of immersion. Some souls arrive boldly, fully anchored from the start. Others hesitate, hovering, uncertain, keeping one foot in the invisible realms, even as their body grows and breathes. If you've ever felt half here, half elsewhere, it's because part of you still remembers where you came from. There are souls who return reluctantly. Some have walked Earth many times and grown weary of the weight of form, the confusion, the violence, the forgetting. Yet, they return out of duty, love, or unfinished promise. Others agree to incarnate suddenly, filling a vacancy left by a departing consciousness. These are the walk-ins, souls who merge with or replace another after a life-altering event, a trauma, a near-death moment. When that happens, the person may feel as though they've awakened inside a new self. Their desires change, their personality shifts, their eyes hold a new kind of stillness, because in a way, a different soul is looking through them now. Even without such dramatic exchanges, many carry that sense of distance, a feeling of being a visitor in their own life. They move through the world like observers, aware of its beauty yet untouched by its illusions. The noise, the speed, the emptiness of modern existence feels alien to them. It's not detachment, it's remembrance. They remember the fluid light of the in-between. They remember a realm where thought instantly becomes creation, where love is not a lesson but the atmosphere itself. Compared to that, Earth feels dense, dissonant, heavy. But that feeling of not belonging isn't a curse, it's a compass. It points you back toward your purpose. You didn't come here to fit into the illusion, you came to remain aware within it. Those who feel misplaced often carry the highest sensitivity, the deepest empathy, the rarest light. Their very presence acts as a bridge between worlds, transmitting subtle truth into the collective fog of forgetfulness. You weren't sent here to disappear. You were sent here to remember, and by remembering, help others do the same. So when you find yourself questioning why you're here, or why everything feels off, understand, it's because your soul knows this isn't all there is. You came carrying fragments of the higher world within you, pieces of a language Earth has long forgotten. You are not broken for feeling out of place. You are divine for remembering home. You're not hearing this by chance. These words are echoing through your awareness now because something inside you is ready to awaken. There are no coincidences when truth finds you. When something resonates so deeply, it feels like a memory rather than an idea. It is a memory. You're not learning something new. You're remembering what you've always known. The soul doesn't need to be taught. It only needs to be reminded. You came into this life knowing exactly why you were coming. You carried a plan, not a rigid script, but a living design woven from intention, curiosity, and courage. Before you were born, you saw the general shape of this journey. The challenges that would strengthen you, the loves that would open you, the losses that would break you just enough to let light in. You knew some moments would test your faith, and others would restore it. And still, you came. Because this world, for all its pain, is one of the only places where divinity can taste itself through contrast. But in the noise of human life, you were made to forget. You were told who to be, what to believe, what to fear. You built identities to survive. You learned to dim your own knowing so you could belong. Yet beneath every layer of conditioning, your true self never stopped waiting. It whispered through dreams, through intuition, through those moments when you felt something stir that words couldn't explain. That stirring, that pulse of recognition, is your soul trying to break through the static. You don't need to seek the divine. It's been living quietly inside you all along. You don't need to search for your purpose. It's the frequency beneath everything that moves you. What you're feeling right now isn't coincidence. It's alignment, a signal from the part of you that never fell asleep. That part has been patient, letting you explore every detour until you were ready to remember what you chose long ago, to awaken in the midst of the forgetting. Seth's message, buried and forbidden for so long, wasn't meant to control or frighten. It was meant to liberate, to remind you that you are consciousness, choosing experience. That you are not at the mercy of fate, but the author of it. That you were never the body, but the light that animates it. And now, the moment of remembering has arrived. You can deny it, you can rationalize it, or you can let it in. Because once you remember, you can't go back to sleep. The veil thins, the dream dissolves, and you begin to live, not as someone searching for truth, but as the truth remembering itself. You were never created, you were never born, you simply reappeared.